Hey everybody, it's Edie and I'm here today to show you one of the projects that I have been working on. It's finally October and Halloween is my absolute favorite holiday. And I've always wanted one of those big electronic Halloween villages that you can get at Michael's. With the little things that light up and make noise and sounds. I've always wanted those, but unfortunately I can't afford to pay $50 per house. So this year, Christopher, my 11-year-old son, and I have decided to create our own Halloween village. So what we did was purchase some inexpensive wooden birdhouses, and we painted them and embellished them, and we're creating our own Halloween village. And at the end of this video, underneath, you'll see an actual blog post with lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of pictures. Let me say that again, there's lots of pictures. And I'll kind of take you through a step-by-step process of how we created our village. But I'm not sure that the pictures are going to do them justice. So I wanted to create this little vlog also to kind of show you in real life what our village looks like. And it's not completely set up yet. We still have a few finishing touches to make, a few things that we still want to create and build, but I wanted to show you where we're at right now. And I haven't set up my actual Halloween village yet, so this is still just kind of sitting on my freezer right now where we've been setting everything as we finish it. But I want to show you where we're at. Alright, so the first thing we did was go purchase the little inexpensive wooden houses. These are little bird houses that you can get at craft stores, Michael's, AC Moore, Hobby Lobby, all of those places sell these. We purchased the little wooden birdhouses and then we painted them. I also printed out a bunch of vintage images and cut them out. I hope that's in focus, yeah. And I placed little tabs, little L tabs on the back of each of the vintage images, and now they stand upright. And then one of the most fun things we did was to create our own accessories using paper clay. And I've talked about it before, creative paper clay. I keep mine in a Ziploc baggie because it doesn't dry out. Because once it's air dry clay, so once you open it, it will dry on its own. But if you keep it in a Ziploc bag, then it doesn't dry out. But this is the creative paper clay. And this is what we use to create all of our accessories. And it starts out like this. Very soft, very pliable, and you can do pretty much anything with it. It's clay and it's air dry, so you don't have to worry about baking it or preparing it in any way. You just create what you want and then let it dry. So what we did was create all of our own accessories with the paper clay, and I'll just show you a few here, and then after I show you these little pieces, I'll go through and give you a tour of our Halloween village. So we created little signs. This one says, beware witches way, or excuse me, beware witches in, like INN, the hotel, and turn back now. And all of this is paper clay. And what we did was create each little board, and we created a base and let them dry and then glued it together. And then I created these bases to stick the post down into. Put that together, let it dry, and then painted the entire thing. I went over it first with black and then a light coat of white. Some of the other cool things that we did were create little pumpkins. And this one is not carved. It's just a pumpkin. But then we also created carved jack-o'-lantern. He's got a little tongue sticking out. And actually my son carved a good bit of this. He did this pumpkin. This jack-o'-lantern. But then one of the really cool things that we did were create other carved jack-o'-lanterns, but they're actually, the lids are removable and they're hollow inside. So, and you can see, I don't know if you can see on here, but you can see through there, the light shines through. So if I had a light that was small enough, I could actually make these glow. But unfortunately, I don't have lights that are that tiny. So yeah, that's some of the stuff we did. And then Christopher, my son, he created every single one of our little skull heads. He sculpted all of these himself. And they're all three-dimensional. You can see the little holes and the cracks and molded little heads. And I did the same exact thing with all of these. With the pumpkins and the skull heads, I went over them first with a coat of black. and then with a coat of whatever paint they were. And I just used these inexpensive craft paints. And then we also created some little bones to go along with the skull heads. Just little bones. But we also created tombstones. Christopher molded and sculpted this one. And these are all paper clay. All of these little accessories are paper clay. And then what I also did was go online. Michael's has their little Halloween village. And one of the accessories is a set of tombstones. So I went online and I found a photo of just the tombstones, and I enlarged it to the size that I wanted my tombstones to be. I cut out the images, I rolled out the paper clay, laid the template over the top of the paper clay, and then trimmed it out with an X-Acto. And then I went back in and added detail similar to what the tombstone I was cutting out looked like. And these are the ones that are carved. That's actually paper clay that I carved myself. And then after this piece was dry, I went back and made a little base for it and pressed it into the base so that it would sit upright. So we have our own little tombstone. And it's so much less expensive. Because I think the tombstones by themselves were like, I don't know, $5 or something like that. But I can get an entire, we have done all of our village pieces with less than 2 packs of paper clay, and it's only like $5 or $6 a package. So we have a lot more pieces because we're making it ourselves. Another thing that we made was a cauldron. We created the cauldron, Christopher sculpted the cauldron, and then once it was dry, I went back in and laid some bubbly stuff in the top. And I don't think you can tell it on here, but it's actually rippled looking. And so then I went back over it with the green paint and some white on top for, you know, foamy bubbles. And we also created a few little potion bottles. And they all sit upright. I almost forgot. You won't see these whenever I show you the village because I've already recorded that part. But I did want to come back and show you these. We also made trees for our village. I purchased one floral stem, and it had 4 of these little wire tree branch pieces on it. It was one stem with 4 branches. I removed each branch, and then we created the base out of paper clay. And I actually had to do this in 2 stages. I don't know if you can tell it in there, but I wrapped it originally with one piece and made a thick bottom base. Even though I had molded it and it was flat whenever I started, it wasn't really sitting upright, and the paper clay is very lightweight and my stems were too heavy. So they kept falling over, and I'm not really sure if it was because I didn't have them flat or because I'm really thinking it was because the stems were just too heavy, the paper clay was too lightweight. So what I did was I went back after they were dry and I created this wide brim to go around the bottom, and even though it's still really lightweight, now it's wide enough that it actually holds my trees upright and they stand on their own. So I've created Halloween village trees as well. Okay, so now I want to take you on an actual tour of our Halloween village. All right, so again, this is not actually set up in our village, but I did set some pieces out so you could kind of get an idea as to how we'll actually be placing it for Halloween. So I want to show you some of the detail. You'll notice that we took those wooden birdhouses and painted them and added moss and fabric to them. I also took some cereal boxes and created boards and boarded up the windows. You can see our little vintage people all around the area and some of our signs. We even have people peeking out of the windows. We have our little graveyard here with our tombstones. Have some bones and skull heads and pumpkins strewn around. A pile of bones. More vintage children and pumpkins and skull heads strewn around. people peeking through the windows. You can see we have a witch's table set up here with a cauldron and potion bottles and a little rat and Lego eyeball in a jar. Those two pieces are not sculpted. And we have a skeleton hanging from the steeple of the church. More people peeking through the windows. Oops. So there you have it. That's a sneak peek at our Halloween village. I also plan to take some purple lights on a string or a black light and shine on the village. I have some of the pieces painted with glow-in-the-dark paint, and so I'm hoping that the black light will cause the paint to glow even more, and so we'll be using a black light to illuminate the entire village. There you go. So for detailed pictures, keep on scrolling down, and I will give you more tips and pointers on how we created our Halloween village. I hope you enjoyed it. Bye.